Hello and a very warm welcome to an India Today special broadcast. We get you a special India Today investigation. India Today reports from inside what is being described as a terror den. That's right, India Today gets you an exclusive scoop from inside the Al Falah University. India Today's undercover reporters, our special investigation team, spoke to students and staff at the Al Falah University to understand more about the persons who are being described as the terror doctors. Not one, not two, but multiple terror doctors, including the suspected main plotter and attacker, Dr. Nabi Muhammad, Dr. Umar Muhammad. The information that we are getting about Dr. Umar Muhammad and Dr. Muzammil will shock you. These are doctors who studied at the prestigious GMC Government Medical College in Srinagar. They hail from the Kashmir Valley, but these elements were so radicalized, and students themselves here were shocked by the kind of radicalization and the kind of Taliban-style teaching inside the Al Falah University. You don't have to hear it from us. You will hear it from the students themselves. Students say that terror mastermind, Dr. Umar Muhammad, he's the man who was driving that I-20 car, drove it around Faridabad, went up to New Mewat region before entering Delhi and traveling across the length and breadth of the national capital, including to Connaught Place, to Mayur Vihar, to several other locations, scouting for a proper place where he could inflict maximum damage, and then went to a mosque at Turkman Gate, then parked his car outside the masjid, the Sunehri Masjid near Red Fort, and then finally carried out that terror attack. The same Dr. Umar Muhammad enforced Taliban-style segregation. That's right, he enforced Taliban-style segregation at the university. In his class, he kept the male students and the female students separate. He, of course, lived a rather quiet life in the hostel. The staff say he barely interacted with anyone. On this special broadcast, we'll also tell you about what transpired in room number 13 of that hostel, room number 4 and room number 13, because police believe this is where the terror plot was hatched. India Today's special investigation team went on ground zero. What they found was alarming. And over the course of the next half hour, we get you much more on this big story. At 8:30, we'll get you the latest from Pakistan. We will get you that big report from Pakistan where Field Marshal Asim Munir will now have immunity for life. He is practically a dictator now, the way he will be running Pakistan. The parliament approved it, the 27th Amendment. President Asif Ali Zardari has signed the dotted line. He hardly had an alternative, but we will tell you all of that at 8:30 tonight. But before that, I want to bring you this ground report. This is an India Today special investigation.
The Al Falah University in a small village in Faridabad has been thrust in the national spotlight as a terror hub, as doctors linked to the university have been arrested one after another for plotting a deadly attack. India Today's special investigation team visited the university, and here is what we found. After interacting with students and staff at the Al Falah University, what we gathered is that terrorist Umar Muhammad, the doctor who taught them, used to implement the Taliban model in his classrooms. In his class, boys and girls were not allowed to sit together.
डॉक्टर उमर हमारे टीचर थे, कैसे आप लड़के लड़कियों को पहले क्लास में आ गए। मतलब हमारा बैच है वो सिर्फ एक ऐसा बैच है जो मिक्स होकर बैठते हैं। मतलब हमारे बैच में अच्छा लगता है कोई किसी के साथ बैठना, कोई लेकिन वो अलग बैठ कर देते थे आपके 5:20 पे यहाँ पे भी उमर साहब नहीं रहते थे। ना तो हमने कभी सुना ना हमने देखा।
The terrorist doctor did not meet anyone and did not interact much with the staff either.
मैंने तो अभी ज्वाइन किया है, 1 वीक जूनियर मोस्ट डॉक्टर हूँ, MBBS कंप्लीट हुई थी मेरी अभी। तो मैंने तो अभी ज्वाइन किया है ना, तो मैं तो पुराना हूँ, तो मुझे तो किसी को ही नहीं जानता है। उनसे क्या, मैं तो किसी से ही नहीं।
Ever since the blast, the number of patients coming to the Al Falah University Hospital has also decreased. Speaking to India Today's hidden camera, student revealed this visible change. The students here are unhappy with the college, saying the teaching and facilities are not up to the mark.
एक तो यहाँ पे पढ़ाई इतनी अच्छी है नहीं, हमारे लिए उतनी फैसिलिटी है नहीं, प्रैक्टिकल्स वगैरह इतने अच्छे से नहीं होते यहाँ पे। मैंने शाइन मैम को देखा था, जो शाइन थी, हम लोग पढ़े थे, मतलब पढ़ाने में तो वो काफ़ी अच्छे थे।
The residential colony close to the Al Falah Hospital, where the arrested Dr. Muzammil Saeed Ganai rented 2 rooms, people say he lied to the locals for renting the rooms. After storing the explosives in the rented rooms, Dr. Muzammil left and never returned.
आया मकान लेने के लिए, आया मेरे पास मकान कितना किराया, मेरे साथ बच्चे हैं, बच्चे हैं तो 1500, बच्चे रहे तो 1500 रुपये, 1200 देख आया, सारा मैं कमरा पसंद कर दिया, ठीक है मैं सामान दिया, रात को आया 9 बजे, सामान लेके रख दिया, देखिए सारा सामान टेलीफोन नंबर लिखते, 2 महीने का किराया दे देता, 24 खड़ा होकर निकाल के 24 उसके बाद आज तक न आया। अब से 3 दिन पहले, 4 दिन पहले इस टाइम आदमी आए, या वक्त पीछे 2 आदमी आए, बताए कहने लगे वो यहाँ किसी ने सामान रख रखा, डॉक्टर ने सुबह कश्मीर से काफ़ी सारे आदमी आए, कश्मीर से, उन्होंने आकर कहा भाई कौन सा कमरा बताओ, ये है। दिन में उन्होंने सारा देखा, तोला, कुत्ता लाए और या वक्त उन्होंने लोड कर दिया सारा सामान। आप पहली बार क्यों पहली बार?
As more and more details of the doctor's terror module are revealed, the investigating agencies have the tough task of piecing together the terror puzzle that keeps expanding with each passing day. With Nitin Jain and Anmol Nath Bali in Faridabad, Bureau Report, India Today.
I quickly want to cut across to India Today. Shreya Chatterjee joining us with the latest on this developing story. Shreya, even as you and I speak, I believe there are multiple raids that are going on in and around Delhi and in other parts of the country. But explain, how could students, staff and those around Dr. Muzammil and Dr. Umar not know what they were up to, and especially what transpired in room number 4 and room number 13 of the Al Falah University hostel? Okay, give me a moment as I try and reconnect with Shreya. Anmol Bali, my colleague, joining me with more on this story. Anmol, give us details of what was this university like. Our special investigation team has spoken to students here, staff here. Did they have absolutely no idea what Dr. Umar, Dr. Muzammil, Dr. Shaheen and others were up to?
Gaurav, we have talked with many students and staff members and doctors from the university, and many of them have told us the same thing, that they were very neutral, they weren't so social, they doesn't talk with people. Like we have talked with one of the doctor who was very new to the campus, he was one of the new teacher, but he hasn't seen them, he hasn't heard about them. We have talked with also students to discuss with them about the I-20 car which was used for the blast, but they said they haven't seen any I-20 car inside the campus. And today also we have seen that police has got a trace of one of the Brezza car which was also part of this terror gang. And on the other hand, while we were discussing about the university with one of the MBBS third year student, he told us that the class was being run with a Taliban model, like what we see in Afghanistan. Then after the takeover of the Taliban, students are not allowed, the girls and boys are not allowed to sit together. Is that same way the Umar, the terrorist who blew himself at the Lal Killa, was using the same model with the students of MBBS in 2025. They were medical students and they were not allowed to sit together. While he was taking the class, he used to say to the students that you both have to sit in the groups, girls one side and the boys other side. So from here one can understand how fishy was things at the Al Falah University.
Did he make an attempt to radicalize students, recruit more students? I believe that's also a matter of investigation, and not just him, but Dr. Adil, Dr. Shaheen, Dr. Muzammil. Was an attempt made to radicalize others? Do we have details? There was a diary which has been found with a list of 25 names. What more do we know?
Gaurav, as we have known from the agencies that Shaheen was the head of Jaish Mohammed's recruitment module for the women, and she was doing this in the western UP, like in Deoband and the areas of New, which are heavily Muslim populated areas. So she was planning to go to the people, those who are poor, those who are not literate enough, to brainwash them, to bring them under her propaganda, and to recruit them or hire them for their terrorized activities. But we haven't got any trace yet about what they were doing inside the university campus, but still the agencies are finding, and they're finding various angles. They're not looking into just the stuff like ammonia nitrate, but they are also looking at the digital data like CCTV footage. They are also talking with the students, those who were getting knowledge from them, were getting taught
Apparently
by
they
these
were also
terrorists.
using
So they are
some kind of
discussing
a
with them, and the investigation is
app for communication, totally encrypted communication. It's a matter of investigation. And more for the moment, many thanks for joining me. I have more breaking news that's coming in. This is the Big India Today Impact story. The Association of Indian Universities has revoked the membership of the Al Falah University. The reason cited for membership being revoked is the university's poor standing. How could the university not know what was happening inside? How could university staff, students, administration not know that doctors on the rolls of the university were either indoctrinating others or were sleeper cells for a radical Islamist terrorist organization and were plotting to blow up places in Delhi? Look at the manner in which 2,900 kilograms of ammonium nitrate was painstakingly put together and acquired by these doctors. Dr. Muzammil got some, Dr. Umar got some more stuff from various places, including Mewat region. They traveled to Nu. They took 2 rooms on rent, stored the ammonium nitrate there. They pieced together an improvised explosive device. Apparently the plan was much, much bigger. 4 vehicles have been recovered so far. A red Ford EcoSport, the I-20 which was used in that terror attack. There's a Maruti Suzuki Brezza and a Swift Desire, one that's in the name or registered in the name of Dr. Shaheen Shahid from Lucknow. India Today's Shreya Chatterjee now joins me for more on this. Shreya, bring us details. Why has the membership of Al Falah University been revoked? What this means, and bring us details in the investigation, because apparently it's a much bigger module with multiple other cars and doctors and other stuff unaccounted for from that diary that's been recovered from room number 17 or 13 inside the university?
Absolutely. Gaurav, what we are looking at right now is an investigation in the Delhi terror blast that is focusing around the Al-Falah University. Now, what right now is happening is that there are many people in the university, lab technicians, junior doctors, all being questioned by the NIA. And as we talk, the AIU has suspended the university's accreditation. The reason so, remember that the NACC had also written to them that after their accreditation expiry, why did they not apply for a round two? And the fact that these people who are terrorists, their cars were standing in the Al-Falah University. They moved from the Al-Falah University while they were actually stockpiling explosive items. Everything went amiss. Nothing was in the track. Where were the security checks and balances? These are the reasons that this kind of an action has been taken against the Al-Falah University. And as we also talk, the cars, almost all of them have now been accounted for. NIA's investigation already closing. There's a diary that's been recovered from room number 13 and 20, has multiple names. So we'll definitely be looking at more arrests that will be following in this module, and probably more white-collar doctors masquerading as terrorists will be unearthed in this investigation.
And keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. This is extremely worrisome. It's a white-collar terror module, and there are other doctors still out there at large. An attempt is being made to nab them. It remains to be seen how many of them are missing from their homes, missing from their offices, missing from their universities, not joining investigation. There are many layers to this investigation, and I want to bring in a big story that's coming in. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has put out a very strong warning just moments ago. He's pledged, the Union Home Minister has pledged that the perpetrators of the Delhi blast will be given the strictest possible punishment as per law. The Union Home Minister's message comes as investigators tighten the noose around this terror module. New evidence in this case is surfacing and new layers. So even as you and I speak at this point of time, there are investigations that are going on, raids and searches being carried out in different parts of the country, because this clearly is a race against time. Some cars have been recovered, some ammunition and some explosives have been recovered. The information is there are some elements of this terror module that are still at large. There is information about certain other automobiles. Now, are those automobiles already laden with explosives? Are these elements waiting for an opportune moment to strike? And the security forces, while they had caught a majority of the module, one doctor, Muhammad Umar Nabi, managed to get away, and Muhammad Umar carried out the terror attack. How many others like him are still out there? And that is the Home Minister's message to the security forces: catch them as quickly as possible. And to the perpetrators, the sponsors and the enabling ecosystem, the strictest possible action as per law will be taken against them. Listen in.
આતંકવાદી ઘટનામાં જેમનું મૃત્યુ થયું છે એ સૌ મૃતક લોકોના પરિવારજનો માટે મારી ઊંડી સંવેદના હું વ્યક્ત કરું છું. હું આ તબક્કે એટલું કહેવા માંગુ છું કે બોમ્બ બ્લાસ્ટની કાર્યવાહી કરવાના સૌ જે કોઈ ભી જે સ્તરે આની અંદર સંડોવાયેલા છે એ સૌને કાયદાની અદાલત સામે લઈ જઈ સૌને ઉચિત સજા થાય એના માટે ભારતના વડાપ્રધાનનો જે સંકલ્પ છે એ નિશ્ચિત રૂપે પૂરો થશે અને એક એવું ઉદાહરણ બેસવાનું છે કે જેથી ભવિષ્યમાં આવી ક્યારે આતંકવાદી ઘટના ના થાય.
The Home Minister saying exemplary punishment will be given to the perpetrators and of course those who were part of this terror module. Let me now bring in our guests. We have the best counter-terror experts joining me on this special broadcast. I have Yashovardhan Azad, former Special Secretary of the Intelligence Bureau, joining me on this broadcast. Lieutenant General Raj Shukla is former Army Commander and a commentator on strategic affairs, joining me on this broadcast. Professor Brahma Chilani is one of India's best-known strategic voices with me on this broadcast, as is my colleague Sandeep Unnithan. And Sandeep, quickly to you first. The Home Minister not only saying punishment would be given, it will be exemplary. Are these words, or is there a very strong message behind these words?
There's a very strong message clearly, Gaurav, behind these words. And I want to take our viewers back to the last time we saw such a large number of VBIEDs, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, being used on a very large scale. That is the Mumbai terror attacks of 1993, March 12th, 1993, where a dozen bombs went off. They were packed in suitcases, in cars, in jeeps,
Scooters.
and scooters all across Mumbai city. They were the deadliest terror attacks in any city before 9/11. 257 Mumbaikars were killed, 1,400 injured. And these, Gaurav, mind you, are bombs that actually went off. So you can imagine the kind of mayhem that these plotters were planning to carry out in Delhi and possibly other parts of India with the kind of explosives that have been recovered. Tons of ammonium nitrate. This is a plot that has been nipped in the bud, Gaurav. It's a bit like what if the Mumbai police had chanced on the Al Hussaini building where Tiger Memon and the ISI people were actually assembling those explosives. What if they had bust in before those bombs had gone off? That's exactly what our security forces, our intelligence people have done in Delhi by busting this module before they could carry out this very nefarious plan. The plan very clearly, Gaurav, is to carry out massive attacks all across Delhi, all across India using VBIEDs. And it's a miracle that we've managed to, there's only one of those bombs went off. And
a miracle, but sadly, which came with 13 lives lost. And unfortunately, we still do not know where other members of this module, or are there other modules like this, like the doctor from Hyderabad arrested in Gujarat, trying to make that Ryzen chemical weapon, arrested with assault rifles and Beretta pistols and Glock pistols. How wide is this plot to burn our country? Professor Brahma Chilani, it seems India's enemies are waging war by other means and on multiple fronts. What you saw in Delhi, would you classify this as an act of war being waged by our enemy? Of course, they've been doing this, as Sandeep Punithan rightly pointed out, since the 1980s and the 1990s, Punjab, Kashmir, Bombay, and now Delhi again.
What has happened in the national capital region is unprecedented in terms of international terrorism. There have been many examples of white-collar terrorism. 9/11 was one case. The Dhaka cafe bombing was another case. The Easter Sunday bombings in Sri Lanka were also carried out by highly trained professionals who came from wealthy families. But what the police uncovered in the NCR is unprecedented. A working cell comprising several active doctors who leveraged their profession to facilitate operations, procurement, and logistics. They were also involved in recruitment and indoctrination. And their medical status provided them perfect cover for clandestine operations, allowing them to operate in NCR under the radar of traditional security surveillance mechanisms. There has never been a documented case of this type where multiple active doctors have led and run a coordinated terrorist cell. Of course, there have been individual cases where doctors have played a key role in a terrorist group, including Osama bin Laden's deputy. He was a qualified surgeon.
Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Yes, and the doctor who co-founded the Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Yes.
Fatih Shikaki was also, known as a trained doctor. George Habash was a pediatrician before he became a militant/terrorist. But a group of doctors working together, actively running a cell and engaged in stockpiling nearly 3 tons of military-grade explosives. All this is unprecedented. And therefore, clearly, the government in Delhi, as well as the state governments in different states, clearly have a task, because because there was one deadly car explosion.
Yes.
But the idea was to carry out a series of coordinated attacks,
Shocking.
especially targeting NCR. The
Yes.
fact that these people were operating from NCR, they must have operated for months because you can't accumulate nearly 3 tons of military grade explosives overnight.
In fact,
So
no, Professor Chilani, from the diary and from this, I have this from sources on authority. The plot was in the works for close to 2 years, if not more. That's what the diary reveals. It has a list of close to 20-25 names subject to confirmation. But the fact remains, General Shukla, there is clear and present danger. The advisory that's been issued by the Delhi police, if you have to catch an international flight, reach the airport at least 3 hours earlier because of strict security. If you have to reach a train, if you catch a train, at least reach the station 2 hours earlier because of security. Metro station, keep time. This would indicate there's still clear and present danger. There's a life threat still in and around Delhi and perhaps other parts of the country. Jal Shukla.
Or as the other panelists have pointed out. Yeah.
Go on, sir.
Can you hear me, Gaurav?
Strength 5, go on, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
We can, General Shukla. Go on, sir.
Yeah. So,
Okay, give me a moment as I try and reestablish this link with General Shukla. But Mr. Azad, let me bring this question to you right now. What would you make of the advisory that's gone out, the arrests that have taken place, and those who are still out there, despite days of interrogation? The security forces haven't been able to, the investigative agencies haven't been able to unravel the entire plot so far. So you're on mute. Request you to unmute yourself.
I would totally agree with Professor Chalani when he says this is an unprecedented kind of a sinister plot that we have seen or unearthed. And to this extent and its linkages in the various states. As far as the, I'm very happy that you are focusing on that point, which we discussed earlier, that the Al Falah University, from there, you will get a minefield of information. And for those people who were there, because this module was being developed for 2 years, they were not able to see those quintals of ammonium nitrate being brought from Nu in Mewat, repeated trips by those 4 cars, but yet not being kept over there, those meetings, those timers. It's impossible to not to be able to trace. So if there was a distancing, willfully, if there was a distancing because they didn't know, I'm not too sure about that. And therefore, it's extremely important to get more and more information from there. As far as the security protocols the police is considering, of course, I'm sure in this respect, the IB would also be, sending out circulars to the various states because security matter and the intelligence matters are IB related. But it's extremely important because, for the time being that we have seen these modules which has been developing for 2 years having its linkages we have not been able to explore as yet.
Yes.
Those 2 Maulanas, the number of people they have radicalized, if there's a list somewhere, then it's extremely important, especially then breaking through those encrypted messages. What are the directions? Because you gave those 2 very important dates, November 8 and November 12. Was it a missed opportunity on November 8? And obviously, after November 10 incident, the November 12 incident could not take place. Therefore, if there are more cars out in the open, then we are in trouble. If there are more doctors who are already on their, if they are determined enough to make that assault, then we are again in trouble. So I do hope all these are explored at the earliest. And I do hope before that there is no strike at any public place. Mind you, there are few places we have to guard. There are these crowded areas in Delhi, which they had surveyed. There is that RSS office in Lucknow they had talked about. And similarly, more and more information which is coming out from their diaries.
Okay. Let me bring in General Shukla once again. General Shukla, you and I spoke extensively post Pulwama, during Operation in Balakot, during Operation Sindoor, and the Prime Minister saying, making it very clear, any act of terror would be seen as an act of war. In this case, considering this is a module of the Pakistan-based terrorist organization, Jaish-e-Mohammed, do we look at it as LT's local terrorists investigate the foreign support, or would you see this as an act of war, and should India act accordingly?
Firstly, I think this information which is coming out about Dr. Shaheen's connection with the sister of Masood Azhar or something like that,
Right.
that perhaps should in days lead to what I think is the inevitable Jaish connection. So I think behind this module, Pakistan is very much there. It will take some time for it to be confirmed. So that is one point. Now, what does this mean? Is it an act of war? Well, from the very definition, it is an act of war. But it is my view, and this is my personal view, that responding is a sovereign decision. We will choose the time and place. It doesn't mean that every time they do something, we'll respond. That a host of factors will have to be taken into account. But if the Pakistan connection is established, then it is an act of war. And what is even more worrying, yesterday I read some news reports about a Turkish connection.
Yes.
And that should, point to the other issues which people have been bringing up. And that is this, that is terror back in a far larger banner. I, for one, personally had thought, as far as I can recollect, the last major incident like this outside Kashmir took place in 2013. That was, I think, the Patna bombings. Thereafter, we've not had some large attacks. So I actually thought the counter-terror apparatus was in control of things. It was not that attempts were not being made. I'm told last year about 80 terrorists were nabbed, this year so far 82. But the ability to preempt depends on the ability of the counter-terror apparatus to monitor a cell as it unfolds, as it expands, and to pounce on it. Now, if that is what we have done, then we are in control. But if we have stumbled into evidence, then we are really not in control in terms of counter-terror capacities. And that other issue, I think what Mr. Azad was bringing up, what is very worrying is this terror den in the university.
Yes.
I mean, people seem to have looked the other way. There should have been police information flowing in. How can you have this going on for 10 to 11 months in Delhi and are not knowing about it? So in that sense, our counter-terror apparatus needs to expand. And I would just like to...
Intelligence and counter-terror. Go on, sir. Yes, sir.
Just one shot. This 27th amendment should worry us even more.
Sir, I'm coming to that in just a moment. Sir, I'm coming to 27th amendment in a short while from now. I'm restricting myself to this for the moment because, Professor Brahmachalani, would you look at this as, one, an intelligence failure, the fact that it was on for close to 2 years, the fact that not one, not two, not three, but at least a dozen doctors, paramedical staff and others were apparently involved across multiple states from Jammu and Kashmir to, the brother-sister duo from Lucknow, Dr. Ansari and Dr. Shaheen, the doctors who are involved in Delhi, Muzammil, Adil, Umar, the doctors who've now been taken into custody, that Maulana Irfan. Our agency should have known if it's such a wide terror network across so many states.
This is a wake-up call for India's counter-terrorism strategy, Gaurav. That strategy needs to adapt to the new realities. There needs to be intelligence on ideological footprints. There should be a shift in the focus of intelligence gathering. Intelligence agencies should be able to identify the specific clerical, academic, or online figures who are radicalizing educated individuals. This has to be a priority too. You can't just focus on disadvantaged elements in society who may be recruited by extremists to dismantle the entire ecosystem of terrorism, including the facilitators, recruiters, and ideologues. You have to go after those who are indoctrinating others, the ideologues. After all, what keeps terrorism alive? It's radical ideology.
Yes.
That's the root of terrorism. Unless you don't attack ideology, how will you contain terrorism? This is the first lesson that we have to learn, that we have to go after those who are in the business of radicalizing and indoctrinating others.
Oh, absolutely.
Without that, recruitment will not stop.
And unfortunately, do we brush this under the carpet? Do we try and justify it? Do we look at it as freedom of expression? Sandeep, when you have elements in our society, in our midst who say, Bharat tere tukde honge, inshallah, and we think that that's freedom of expression because it's happening at a university. Today they are saying Bharat tere tukde honge. It seems the next day they actually want to kill innocent Indians in the way these doctors were trying to do at a university, and not just Bharat tere tukde honge. You also have these elements in our society who are hailed as activists who say, let's cut off India at Assam, let's cut off India at Chicken's Neck. If 5 lakh Muslims stand in that belt, India will be cut off. Is that freedom of expression? Or are those chaps the first level and these chaps the last level of that, that terror plot? From those chaps to Dr. Nabi, to this Dr. Umar.
Seems to be a certain blurring of the lines between what we call the OGWs, the overground workers, and an actual terror cell. And here, very clearly, had it not been for that very alert police officers in Jammu and Kashmir who spotted those posters being put up, in support of Jaish Mohammed, we possibly wouldn't have busted this terror module, and we, God forbid, we'd have been actually talking about the aftermath of what they actually had planned. So it was a very alert group of policemen who worked, who diligently, followed up that trail, and that's what led to this uncovering of this module. So as you said, you cannot take all this lying down. The fact is that as this module is demonstrated, there seems to be a very thin line between these overground workers, radicalized elements, and that switch to becoming a full-fledged terror cell which plans mayhem across Delhi, NCR, and possibly across the country. So there needs to be a complete overhaul of our system, Gaurav, especially when it comes to monitoring such elements, these radical elements that are in our midst, that are preaching violence, hatred, indoctrinating young minds, and as this terror cell of doctors has shown us, that no amount of education, professionalism seem to have detracted them from their plan of carrying out mass terror attacks on the scale of Mumbai, 1993.
Yeah, just imagine that these are the elements. They have the best of society, they have the best of education, and then so many of them end up being terrorists and killing innocent people instead of healing them. But let me bring you in, Mr. Azad, and one by one, General Shukla. Those who say Bharat tere tukde honge at universities one day are the same elements in your view, and I want to understand from you. Or those who say let's cut off India at Assam. If 5 lakh Muslims stand there, India will be cut off. Is that activism? Are these overground workers? Or are there's just 50 shades of terror, one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, Mr. Azad?
Whoever they are, I mean, whether they're activists or whether then nobody has a right to talk in terms of Bharat ke tukde honge, and strongest action should be taken against them. But one of the most important things which I want to just take a minute on is the de-radicalization, because that is exactly at the core of this terrorist ideology. De-radicalization cannot be only left to the intelligence and the police forces. It is also, it's time that the Prime Minister should call the chief ministers and tell them to engage with the so far aloof middle class, the educated youth, also with those people who are not mere voters. Every time the political ideology is to meet with those who are the voters, never meeting the educated or middle class who feel absolutely alienated and aloof from whatever state activities are doing. So that is extremely important for de-radicalization.
Okay, General Shukla, your take on this. Is India too soft a state in dealing with these elements until it's too late? Once they've done something, India cracks the whip. But before that, is it time for preemptive action against these people without fear of favor?
Well, over the last decade, we've been accused of getting too hard. So I think that soft tag is a thing of the past. But two issues I want to raise. One is about this technical intelligence. I mean, human intelligence is extraordinarily important. But see, what happened in the valley for a while was those sets which we couldn't breach. So that is, one part of the problem. Today, in this module also, this morning I was following NDTV, I think, and they were talking of this Thema app, this
Yes.
instant messaging app, which is not connected to a phone, not to an email. Now, what are our capacities to monitor this kind of stuff?
Okay.
Because if you cannot get over these technical challenges on the ground, I'll tell you, it's very difficult to break into these modules. And the second point I want to make is a larger point, which I always want to make, that it is just not terror from the West, it is from the East with China. The point I'm making is that our national security challenges to include terror seem to be running ahead of us. We need, the National Security Advisor and the apex political leadership to spare a week and listen to some voices from all over the country about what we should do in the long term. We should not be falling behind the challenge. And I get a sense that we are falling behind the challenge.
Professor Chilani, is that also your appreciation? The manner in which, and in a moment from now, on the other side of a quick break, I will be coming to the aspect of a radical Islamist general in Pakistan, now with the 27th Amendment, becoming dictator for life or as long as he lives, unless, either a Zia happens to him or a Musharraf, I have no idea. But before that, are we falling behind in this war on radical Islamist terror being waged from our western borders, perhaps our eastern borders, and of course now the enemy within?
Well, that's the big long-term threat. The threat from radical ideology. And the only radical ideology that threatens to partition India again is the radical Islamist ideology. And we have to face this reality. We can't be politically correct all the time. We have to understand that there are these pernicious, sinister forces operating both from within and from outside who are using religion, a perversion, a religious perversion, to undermine India's security. And to deal with that, we need to do several things. First, we need to recognize the problem. Two, we have to build counter narratives. Just political outreach to the marginalized will not be enough. We have to do it at the ideological level too. To fight ideology, you need to respond to the ideology with your own ideology. That is counter narratives. Counter narratives are the most powerful means of fighting an ideology.
So let me spend 30 seconds with all three of you, because you've raised a very pertinent point, Professor Chilani. If a paramedic who's also the Maulvi of the Naugam Masjid in Kashmir is radicalizing young doctors in Kashmir, and not one and not two, but multiple, like many doctors, Dr. Adil, Dr. Umar, Dr. Muzammil, and there is a long list. How do you give a counter narrative when this paramedic Maulvi is giving them some kind of a spiel for years? Professor Chilani.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize that you were asking me. Look, Gaurav, targeted counter narratives. You fight ideology through ideological means too. Developing sophisticated counter narratives that address the intellectual and perceived ideological grievances of the marginalized, including of those who are highly trained, that is the professionals. So you have to develop counter narratives that also appeal to the educated class. So this building of counter narratives has to involve civil society, community leaders, and particularly respected voices from the professional, academic, and religious communities. For example, getting moderate Muslims to speak up on how radical Islamist ideology is a threat not just to India, a threat to Islam, a threat to Muslim communities in India. That's how you build targeted counter narratives.
Unless, of course, those moderate Muslims are scared of these elements themselves. After all, who would want to be the next victim of these elements? And Sandeep, the point that General Shukla was raising about technology, these young, highly educated doctors using an app, which is paid for, which does not want which does not want your phone number, which does not want your email address. It's a paid app. You can have highly secure encrypted conversation, audio, video, data. Are our security forces up to the mark? Are they lagging? In this instance, if such a group was operating for 2 years, clearly India has been found to be lagging here.
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. And the thing is that technology is moving at such an incredible speed. And this is something that General Shukla has written in his book on civil-military fusion. The fact is that technology is moving so rapidly that it's almost impossible for intelligence agencies, for the security agencies to keep catching up with it. But the fact is that at least some broad parameters should be there for them to be able to, get sophisticated tools to break encryption codes and all of that. Those should be at least there. The fundamental building blocks of that should exist, because you're clearly up against a very bright bunch of educated, middle-class professionals who have turned terrorists. So you have to actually keep up with them. It's no longer that old thing of, wiretapping phones and all that. They clearly know what's there in this game, and they're staying ahead of the law enforcement agency. So it's, of course,
we should actually be 2 steps forward instead of trying to catch up. But
we need to get young professionals in on the game, Gaurav.
Absolutely, because General Shukla, the threat that India faces is not just land, sea, air, or undersea. It's also cyber. Cyber is huge. In your appreciation, sir, and you've written in your book, are we lagging? Are we playing catch up?
We're absolutely lagging in cyber. It's not just cyber, it is AI-enabled cyber. I mean, you see a discourse outside, people say AI-enabled cyber is unstoppable. You hear Eric Skimmett on it. So, see, this space and cyber, they have to become combatant commands as far as possible. Technology, you need units like 8200, 9300, young technology geeks. Me and Sandeep cannot do this kind of stuff. But one point I want to make, very interestingly, the one which was raised by Mr. Brahmachalani about the counter narrative. In the Muslim world, 2 places where I have seen this happening in a very sophisticated manner is Saudi Arabia and UAE.
Yes.
You visit those places today, there is a modernizing strategic discourse. It is not about religion, it is not about oil, it is about AI and all that kind of stuff. You actually see it happening. And MBS,
Yes.
and MBZ have done it very skillfully.
Yes.
So even in the Muslim world, building a counter narrative, which is about a modernizing discourse, is entirely possible. And I agree 100% with Mr. Chalani that the experts must be brought into this business. Sometimes I hear, that in the Muslim world, such things will happen. Well, a minority perhaps, and against them you need to take action. But the larger Muslim world, you can have a modernizing discourse as Saudi Arabia and UAE have done.
Absolutely. And we need Indian Muslims to actually lead the charge here, and very firmly they need to come forward and lead the charge and ostracize, isolate such elements and take action against them instead of, some trying to play the victim card of being called out. Nobody's calling out anybody except these radical Islamist terrorists who are doctors and masquerading as terrorists, moonlighting as terrorists at night. So let's be very clear about that. Gentlemen, stay with me.